So what accounts for the clear difference in tone to me between
Well,
the movies you did with Larry and the movies
yeah.
you wrote by yourself?
Well, I was not conscious of saying, I'm now going to write myself and there's going to be a change in tone. I was not aware of that, except maybe somewhere inside. But I just felt freer. I was now, whatever happens. But I had already written one movie with Josh Greenfeld named Harry and Tonto.
Mm-hmm.
And Harry and Tonto, Art Carney won the Oscar. It was a great collaboration between Josh and myself. And then we had a kind of bad experience between Josh and I. And that, which I don't want to go into right now. But we made up. And we're very close friends now. But that was my last experience in collaborating, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got to the next movie, which was
Greenwich Village? Was it Greenwich Village?
Next Stop, Greenwich Village. That's the first one I think I wrote on my own. I clearly, I'd already been out with Harry and Tonto, which we couldn't get made. And Freddie Fields kept telling me, you only need one yes, pal. That's all you need. And eventually we got the yes. That's another story. Okay, change in tone.
Greenwich Village.
Greenwich Village, yeah. The memory bank of my own experiences in life, which are really more clearly in the movie than anything I had done up to then. Up to then, I had done movies where I used elements that I knew in my life, but I hadn't had them happen to me in the same way. Whereas with Next Up, Greenwich Village, a lot of things coalesced. Watching my parents argue, being a boy, scenes, flashbacks to boyhood in Next Up. The thing with the girl who cuckolded me with Howard O. Sackler, as a matter of fact. I was the victim. I followed her to Mexico. That's not in the movie. In the movie it happens. Chris Walken plays Sackler. It's brilliant. And he was beautiful, by the way. Beautiful look. It just was different. I wrote the script in about 8 weeks. And I showed it to Josh Greenfeld halfway through. And I said, am I crazy? I did do that. You know, you want the advice of someone you trust. Mm-hmm. Josh says, keep going. It's wonderful. So I did. And luckily, I had made Harry and Tonto for Alan Ladd Jr. at Fox. And he read Next Up, Greenwich Village. And Laddie, who's very quiet, you'd think doesn't know much. He knows a lot. He's a great executive. He should be honored, and he's not. He should get the Gene Hersholt Award. He read it, and he said, when do you want to start? That's all. How much do you think it'll cost? I said, about $2 million, 2.2. Okay. Who's going to be in it? I said, nobody famous. The only one I know who will be famous, if I can get her, is Shelley Winters, who I got, played the mother, and she should have gotten the Oscar. They don't give Oscars for comedians, hardly ever.
She was great.
Although Carney got it. The year Carney won, he beat out Al Pacino, Jack Nicholson.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So Paul, tell the young writers who might be watching this, because now all of a sudden you're not writing with anybody but yourself. So what do? How do you do it? Do you rent an office somewhere? Do you go fly
I went
someplace?
to Jeff Berg, who was my
Yeah.
agent, worked with Freddie, and they gave me an office at the old ICM building where Mateo's is. And I was there by myself with an electric typewriter, which I liked. In fact, I prefer it to the computer, and all of that stuff is great for, fixing, moving it around. It's good for that. I can do it. Well, we didn't have that then. And I spent a week in Palm Desert, 2-inch palms in the summer.
Yeah.
And I wrote 50 pages of Tempest.
And do you do what a lot of writers do? Do you get your scenes down on cards and put them on the wall?
Yeah. I put them all up on the wall, different colors.
And what do the colors signify?
Day, night, real, or manufactured. It works.
And you move them around and
You start throwing them out. You change places. It's useful at first. It's a storyboard. I've done that on every movie. I don't like to put in too much stage directions. That's up to me when I make the movie. I'm not going to live up to it. So you're writing it for one or two reasons. One is to sell it. And when you want to sell it, I understand writing young writers who I would say, if you want to sell it, you may have to be more descriptive so that the readers, who are basically morons, they go to they're in the moron club, they'll understand it better. Because they don't know what's going on. So you got to say, the camera glides in, comes closer and closer, it moves in, goes right to his eye, and we see in the eye, and a boom and a boom.
Right.
Scorsese does that stuff all the time. That stuff is like 70 years old. That stuff was all done in silent films, and great. But it's okay, and Scorsese is very good. He is.
But that's to sell it.
To sell it. If you're writing it for yourself, you're not trying to sell it, you're not worrying about the actors. I don't want them to know too much. I don't want them to know that they're pacing. How do I know they're going to pace? You know what I mean? Pacing.
I get it.
How do I know that they want to do X, Y, Z? I don't do that. I just write a line of dialogue where it's needed. Good morning. How are you? Fine. What about you? Pretty good. Did you hear about Joe DiMaggio? 56 straight. I've got this slight, my stomach is killing me. I don't know why. That's me now. All of a sudden, that's writing. You don't know where it's coming from. And the audience gets pulled in. You don't know about the camera. Now, I had Sven Nykvist as my cameraman, Bergman's cameraman,
Yeah, I know.
on one movie, and Willie and Phil. Sven told me how they shoot, how Bergman shot, and he wanted to operate all the time. They didn't want to let him operate because you have to have a card for both unions. It's bullshit. So I made a deal with the operator, who I paid, just to stand there and leave us alone. I said, wouldn't you use Sven Nykvist if it was your movie? Because he's going to make adjustments in the scene where he's going to make small moves with a zoom where you won't know it's zooming. And he's going to make corrections. And he's going to go to what he thinks is interesting. He'll go over here. He'll get her looking at me. A woman is looking at me right now in this room. It's a great shot. Like that, he goes back off it. And as he goes back off it, the other guy's head comes in close. It's magnificent. It's Bergman. Bergman doesn't go to dailies. Not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. He only goes Saturday. I said, why is that? He said he doesn't want to see what he's done. He's too nervous. So he asks me, "So, Sven, how were the dailies?" "Very good, Ingmar." "In the shot where you went close, could you tell?" "Yeah, but Ingmar, why don't you go see it? I can't describe it to you." "I'm trying to see it, I'm telling you." He did a Kubrick. He said, I can't tell you. I don't know. You better go see it. And Saturday, he'd go see it. And Bergman was egotistical enough and smart enough to really like what he did. But guess what he did with the first week's work? I made a lot of mistakes. We start again. Changing the cast? No. I know what to do. And he did that a lot. He had an extra week.
Yeah. So
I didn't do that. Woody did that. It ruined Woody. Woody should never have. He listened to Bergman.
When you would, because I keep coming back to writing, when you would sit down to write these movies, and you put your cards on the wall, and I know everybody wants to know this. How do you figure out? And you said something very interesting. Peter Sellers, wanted to know his voice, so how do you do? That's a big deal. How do you do that? How do you figure out how these people are going to talk? How do you figure out?
I don't know how they're going to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Lee Strasberg, who I studied with.
Actor Studio.
Actor Studio. I was not in the Actor Studio, but I was in his class. Was in some ways, a tyrant. They were all afraid of him in the class. He was brilliant in The Godfather as Jaime. I don't know if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
That's Strasberg.
I do.
He had this nervous habit of... He would criticize the work, and the class was so afraid of him that they were kissing his ass. I didn't like that. I don't think that's a good teacher. I think a good teacher wants to let you express yourself. Don't be afraid. Anyway, I do a scene with Barbara Turner, who had been married to Vic Morrow, based on a Hemingway story, in the jungle. And when the scene is over, it's some famous story, I forget which. We were auditioning for the studio. And then Lee said to the class, "Not enough heat?" Do you agree, class? Class said, "No heat. We didn't see any heat, Lee." "Absolutely right." I said, "You mean physical heat or inner heat?" I thought there was plenty of inner heat. There's not enough physical heat. You're in the jungle. Doesn't it count? You should be sweating. The jungle is 110 degrees. It's this, it's that. Okay, Lee. We'll be back. So we go back, we rehearse it again, and 3 weeks later we're ready to do the scene again. Now I've got a bucket of water poured over my head to start with, off camera. But you could see that I did it. I've got sponges. I've got a towel wrapped around my neck. I'm talking about, is it muggy and damp? And I'm playing that like mad in the scene. And Lee, when it's over, says to the class, "Too much heat." I said, "You mean moral heat or physical?" "Both." I said, "Mr. Strasberg, I am leaving the room. I want you to know that's the heat that I'm going to have right now. It's too much." He says, "But don't you understand what it's about? You don't know what the next person's going to do." I said, "I don't get it." Anyway, later I understood what he meant in a way. When you're acting in a scene, or you're directing a scene, or even writing a scene, even writing, you don't know what's coming next. It'll come if it's there, and that'll be good. And if it doesn't come, it'll leave you wondering what the next step is, and you can start the next day knowing I'm up to that moment. Let's see what happens. I learned something from it.
From
In other
acting,
words,
you're saying,
you're a blank page, and so is the other actor. Doesn't know if I'm going to suddenly throw this napkin in your face. Well, you'd have to catch it.
yeah. Improv.
Yeah, don't be prepared for it. Be it real. Now it's very hard to do it, and that's why guys like Dustin and some of those guys don't want to do it twice. They either want to do it 30 times or one take.
Mm-hmm.
You know who is great at it? Sinatra. One take. If you didn't like it, fuck you.
Yeah.
That was Frank.
But when you were writing, so I'm trying to understand. So these acting instincts would come.
They helped me. In other words, my advice to all writers, I advise all writers, I, Paul Mazursky, from the Advice Clinic, take an acting class. You don't have to worry about becoming an actor, although you might.
Mm-hmm.
Noah Baumbach is a good writer,
Mm-hmm.
a good director. He's an actor now,
Yes.
and he can act. He's good. You get something from it. You learn how tough it is. One of the great exercises Lee would do, and you get it out of Michael Chekhov, who wrote a great book, which I advise them to read, called To the Actor. Do a day in the life of the person. Spend one day as your character. You make it up. I get up and do it. Act it all day long that day. That's your assignment. I nicked myself shaving. You could put that in. I did this, I did that. Get specific. I was walking down the street. Oh, I saw the cutest dog. I love dogs. I really do. Baby. You do this. You start to build the day, and at the end of the day, you've got something. You know a lot more about that person, and you can write it better. You can write that person better. Maybe not using any of that. The tricks.
But you have better understanding.
Yes. I thought the women in this last film I saw were badly underwritten. They weren't believable. What is it? One of the movies I saw, the
French movie?
The men were very clearly written.
It happened in Saint-Tropez.
Which one?
Happened in Saint-Tropez.
Yes, it happened in Saint-Tropez. It's the truth. The women they were like pawns. They weren't real. Pretty. Well, anyway, that's the story of.
So there was so what you're after from these kind of acting exercises is more reality, more of a sense that the characters that you're gonna see on screen are gonna be real.
Yes, they're tricks, exercises, ways of getting you to know where you're at as a writer. As a writer. Now look, I have a vested interest in acting, and I still act. So I don't. It's easier for me maybe to take it very seriously, but I think every you should study act. Look, Stanislavski studied acting. He was an actor. Kazan was a great actor. I mean, very good actor in certain parts. John Ford, even. I mean, and sometimes you get really good performances from, like I thought in The Searchers, John Wayne can act. In that movie, he was richer and fuller than anybody else. How are you? Come on, Pilgrim. I can't do him.
But he could show something that he hadn't shown before.
He's shown, yes, he could. Yeah.
Yeah. We had some interest here in scenes from a mall.
Well,
And-
Scenes from a Mall is a satire based on Bergman's movie, Scenes from a Marriage, which are basically were done for television in 10 parts. 10 scenes from a marriage. It's a brilliant idea, which no one had thought to do at that time, by Bergman. And of course he had two splendid actors, Erland Josephson and what's her name, the great, beautiful, blonde
Liv Ullmann.
Liv Ullmann playing the wife. And it took you through a marriage. And if you stop and think about your own marriage, yours, you could do your scenes from a marriage, and you'd have less trouble than you think. It might be pulling stuff out of you, but you could. It's easier to do it, I think, in 5, 6, 7, 10 than in one. I did it in one movie, so I didn't want to do it for TV. I knew it would be difficult to get to say what I wanted to say. So I began the movie with Woody Allen. Well, when I began, I wanted Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline. And I got a phone call from the head of Disney. What's his name? Oh,
Bob Eisner?
yeah, Michael Eisner.
Michael Eisner.
Michael called me and said, look, I know you want them, and they'll probably do a great job, but no one's going to come see it. Who wants to see Meryl Streep and Kevin? They're not. I said, you're wrong. They would be great. He said, well, what if I told you Woody Allen is looking for a movie, and we can get Woody, I think, and I'm sure you can get Bette Midler, because she loves you, from down out in Beverly Hills. So I fell for it. And sure enough, the first third of the movie is hilarious, where Woody's got a ponytail. He did everything I wanted, except he made crazy demands. I don't go to California. I hate it. The only good thing in California is right turn on red. That's all you got there. He's wonderful. I said, Woody. He said, also on page 80, it says I cry. I don't cry. I can't cry. I said, you don't know how to cry? He said, no. I said, good, then what would you do? He said, I'll look sad. I said, okay, look sad. I don't care. I said, as a matter of fact, anytime you feel like improvising, improvise. You're a better writer than me. You're the funniest. You are hilarious. He says, no, you're hilarious. Why don't you play the part? I went through that with you. He said, but these are my demands. I don't go to California. I said, well, how am I going to do it? I said, I'll tell you what, I'll get the Disney plane, and they'll fly you out and put you up wherever you want in their own private plane. They have a company plane. It'll be huge. And you can bring 2 nannies and as many kids as you have, and bring Mia Farrow. And little did I know the marriage was already on the rocks. And just come out and do 3 days. And all you have to do is one scene outside their house, loading up the car, and another scene driving up to the Beverly Center. He says, I don't drive. I said, we'll give you lessons. There's no way. Don't make me drive. I'll crash. I don't know how to drive. All right, Bette will drive. So Bette drove great. She wore a fur coat in summer, open car. And I got him. He did it. The first third of the movie was hilarious. As the movie got deeper and sadder, because he now had to confess to her that he had screwed around. He wasn't going to lie. And he told her. She flips. And that's powerful and funny. They were still with us. We got to a certain place in a Mexican restaurant or something. When Michael Eisner, after he saw the movie, said, look, the first beginning, that was all great. I got the itch. I began to itch in this restaurant, and this and that and the other. I said, okay, I'll make it shorter. I'll cut that there. I'll trim it, but you got to have it. But I'll make it shorter, and I'll do this. He said, get to the end, right to the end. And he said, is that how you're going to end it? I said, I've got to end it that way. And it might be very amusing. It might be this. It might be. So the ending, if you probably, I don't know if you remember, is Bet. They've had this terrible argument. They're not talking to each other, but they're back. They're on the elevator, and he was afraid of elevators, by the way. They see people dancing, and they look through the window of the elevator or whatever, the escalator, as they're moving up, and they go to the window, and they see all these people dancing, and their faces pressed up against it, and they see couples, older couples, dancing nicely, holding each other, moving, and they're both very sad. And now I wanted to make it a little funny. So we get on the escalator, and some nice coincidental thing happens, but it's going to end that way, and that's the end of the movie. Great reviews from Vincent Canby. Great reviews in Paris. A Woody Allen triumph. Bombed here. Mazursky, what is he doing? He should stay away from Bergman. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. All I know is I'm glad I made it.
Yeah.
Woody never complained. He doesn't look at critics' reviews.
And you wrote that with Roger Simon.
Yes.
As you
a very
did
good collaboration.
Enemies, a Love Story.
Roger and I have written about 5 or 6 movies. And the ones that were never made are in a chapter. It's called The Ones That Never Got Made in one of my books.
Yeah.
They should have been made. But once you've made a movie that you can be the king, I'm telling this to writers and directors. If your movie scores at the box office, it could be a fecal waste. If it scored, they're happy. If you've written the most brilliant thing about Einstein and Kafka and Schopenhauer and this and that, they don't care. Either they're going to pay or they're not. So they want hits. So we wrote one called Freddie Faust.
You and Roger Simon.
Roger Simon and I. One of my favorite movies. I thought we had it made. A comedy writer who had won the Oscars and all that sort of thing falls on hard times. He's now a victim of ageism. Can't get arrested. And he's forlorn. Meets at the farmer's market with his buddies. There's a coffee lady where he gets his coffee. And they're all amusing. And he's divorced now. He's had 2 divorces. Goes home one day, there's a big rain. It's raining. And there's a bum lying in the driveway. He picks up the bum and moves him. Like, get out of the way there. I gotta get into my... He has no heart for the bum. Sits down, opens his computer, wants to try to write. He's a writer. And guess what comes up on the computer? The devil. Only the devil is a high-tech guy. The devil is like social media. Jesse Eisenberg. He says, hey, how you doing? I know you're having a lot of problems. Who are you? Some people call me Lucifer. Some people call me, all the nicknames. Are you telling me you're the devil in my computer? Yeah, you could say that. Who's playing a prank on me? Oh, I know. I know who's doing it. It's that guy Charlie Bragg. How did he? No, it's not. It's just, I'm the real thing. He said, come on, what are you doing? He said, well, what if I told you there'll be an earthquake in about 17 seconds? I'd say you're full of shit and you're crazy. Get your head examined. 13 seconds. I would say 12, 11, tick tock, 8, 7, 6. I could stop it. Well, come on. 12. Whoa, it's shaking. Everything is lying all over the joint. What's that? I told you. Well, what do you want from me? Well, let me get everything back in place. Whew. Everything is back. What do you? He said, I want 10 years. I want 10 years. I will make you the top writer again. You'll win the Oscar. I guarantee it. In fact, I'll be Price Waterhouse. This, that, the other. He still doesn't believe it. He says, well, I think I'm having a bad day, so I'm going to forget it. Okay, think about it, but I have to know by tomorrow, because we may have to take you. Take me? You heard me. You saw the earthquake. Next day, he's real worried now. He talks to his buddies, the market, this and that. They think he's crazy. He's delusional. It's probably some kind of, there is a syndrome called the Jerusalem syndrome. Do you know about it?
I know of it.
Yeah, the Jerusalem syndrome. Roger and I went to Jerusalem to do research, and we met some of the people. They believe that on a certain date, the world will end, and they believe it profoundly. They're crazy. They have the Jerusalem syndrome. And there's a hospital in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, just for the Jerusalem syndrome. You go there for 6 months. So, he doesn't know what to do, and Roger and I had very good collaborations. I want you to know that. Very, I don't know how to say it, but he's a brilliant man, Roger. He's unfortunately a right-winger. He's turned to the right. He was profoundly to the left. He was. He made a turn and he became a right-winger, which is very troublesome. So, let me see if I can remember exactly how it happens. To make a long story short, he makes the deal. He agrees. He said, well, what do I have to do finally? I'll tell you what you have to do. After 10 years, he says, what's my punishment? Am I going to be stepping into a vat full of shit up to here? You know, like you open doors, pick your door? He says, we could do that, but ours is subtler. What is it? Let me take you on a riding trip right now. Boom! They're in a car driving up the coast of Malibu. So this is nice. What is this? You'll see. Where are we going? We're going to hell. We're going to the country club. Country club? Yeah, it's a country club. Who's there? Senior citizens, assisted living. All assisted living. All former movie makers. Just movie people. You'll love it. Everybody's there. They're all there. You'll have a camera. They'll be filming it, but you don't really film it. You do the same thing every day. You judge the same scene every day. Every day you have the same meal every day. Good food. Very good food. The best. It's the same. Well, is that hell? Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? You'll see. It's hell. Day in, day out. I said, okay, I can handle that. And he takes on the thing. And what if I don't do it? Then it's the 3 doors and the shit up to here. So he does it. He meets a good woman accidentally in the parking lot. Falls in love with her instantly. Things happen one way or the other. He wins the Oscar. It's Price Waterhouse. It's them. They wink at him. He gets it. And the award goes to, and he's thrilled. He's back on top. When the devil shows up in the computer, says, well, you got 2 days left. Just wanted to warn you it's coming. We're going to hell. To that country club and all that? Yeah. He said, what if I don't want to do it? I told you what happens then. Well, how can I undo it? The only way you can undo it is if you did something that's totally not for you. You understand? Everything you do is for you. Every deal you make with, you got to do something that has nothing to do with you. You mean like save a life? Sort of. But you don't expect to get anything in return. You expect nothing. If that ever happened, you might get away with it. You might get another 10 years. They call it an extension. It's like getting your house up for mortgage. And you, oh my God, if that could only happen, well, I don't know. And while they're talking in the parking lot, a little boy is crossing the street and a car is coming right at him. And he lunges forward out of instinct and saves the boy's life. A big crowd comes around him and he's semi-conscious. He's been knocked out. He did it for the boy. And he's what's happening? What's going on? You're in the hospital. You did this, you did that. He's looking at the ceiling. He's in this hospital. What happened? You saved the boy. The boy. Did I? Yes. How could that be? I mean, I don't remember it. And they let him out very soon. And he goes to order a coffee, where he goes all the time. And guess what? Maria says to him, that was a nice thing you did about saving the boy. And no charge for the coffee. He says, how do you know about it? It just happened. It did, see. She said, oh, I work for them. Are you kidding? No. You work for the devil? She said, it's not bad. I'm on my 10-year plan. Anyway, he ends up in Paris with the girl, his son, and it's a very interesting script to me. Couldn't get to make it.
Couldn't get it made.
Yeah. Writers should know you just don't get everything made. Then we wrote one called, I wrote one with Leon.
Yeah. Leon Capitanos?
Yeah, Coast to Coast, which was made for Showtime with Richard Dreyfuss and Judy Davis. And that was made. They don't sell anything there because at that time Showtime was sold to another company, and they brought in a new guy who's very smart. And the new guy decided to go radical, and they do hipper shows now. It was good. Unmarried Woman became a sort of cause célèbre. I wrote it in 6 weeks.
By yourself?
By myself, nonstop. A woman named Carolyn Miller, a close friend of my wife's and myself, was suffering badly from manic depression. My wife, who's extremely intelligent, had read a book about lithium
Mm-hmm.
as a possible cure for manic depressives, bipolar.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to Carolyn Miller's house to see her, and the door opened, and she was peering out, and she was on the downside of, she's a wonderful woman, very bright. I really liked her. She died eventually. Told her about lithium. She got onto lithium, and the next time we saw her, she was on the upper. And she confessed to me a line that made me want to make a movie about it. I have my good days and my bad days. My bad days are still bad, but I know they're not going to last. But the problem is, I don't like the good days as much as I should,
Mm-hmm.
because I miss the bad days. I said, wow, that's crazy. She said, that's the way it is. And I started thinking about making a movie about this thing. And I started interviewing women.
What was the story there that appealed to you?
Well, I'll tell you, as a writer, you don't always know a story to start with. You just know a subject. All I knew was, how could she had a document. She bought a house, and the document said on the thing, Carolyn Miller, an unmarried woman. I said, it doesn't say an unmarried man. How can they treat women that way? Are you kidding? She said, no, Paul. She showed it to me. So I started interviewing women who I'd meet, who I knew, who were divorced. And I asked them flat out, tell me, if you can, I want, you got to be true. Are you lonely? Do you miss things? How do you feel? They said, yeah, well, I'm fighting it. I'm fighting. I don't want to be. I have to have a man to make my life good. That's not what it's like. I'm not gay, but that would be okay. What is it? She said, well, it's odd. It's like one day I was standing by a storefront, and I saw this couple holding each other, and I looked and I saw the reflection of them holding each other and me behind them, and it got me. I felt, wow, I'm missing something. I don't have anybody. I'm alone. And then I meet another woman who would tell me her story. They all had stories, and I started now to think about writing a script, making a story out of it. And I got some cards, and I got an office at ICM, where Mateo's is. And I started putting cards up on the wall and getting a story in order. And I gave her a daughter, and I made the daughter 15, which is an age I knew about, because I had a 15-year-old daughter. Oy vey, it's tough. And I have a little grandson who's 11 now, so I knew about that. Although at that time I wrote it, he was younger. And I gave her this husband, and I decided to open. I wanted a big opening where you'd see New York. New York, I wanted to show with the helicopter shot. This is going to be in New York. It's a New York story. And I said over, there's 6,000 people, stories in New York. This is one of them. It's about an unmarried woman. And the camera comes down and picks up Jill Clayburgh jogging along the East Side Highway with our husband. And camera, it's a great shot. And then finally he steps in shit, and they have a funny argument. And he's angry, cursing, and he throws the sneaker He throws his sneaker away like a moron. Good, you did a good thing, Martin. Now you're going to have to limp your way across. And he does. And she says, what's wrong with you? I don't know, I'm sorry. Please excuse me. I love you. You know how much I love you. And we cut and they're in bed. And they've just had sex. And they're lying there. And the kid knocks and says, can I come in? Did the earth move? She's a wise guy. Patty. She says, well, I'm old enough to know. I know what you did. Nothing wrong with it. You're old enough to have sex. Patty, please. What do we get? She leaves. I'm going to school. Good. And they get up, and he says goodbye to her, and they're really loving with each other. It's wonderful. And he leaves, and you hear ballet music, and she goes, and she starts to go, Erica dancing, a great dancer. She's with the ballet, and she does this ballet dance around the room, wearing her undies, a little shirt, and it's fabulous. And she goes through the entire house, did it all handheld. There was no, they didn't have that camera then. Steady cam. It was lit from above on what painters use, window washers. We were on the 17th floor. Very difficult. We did it. And that scene turned into, I would say, we were going to find out in this story that I had put together her life now when they break up, because she's going to find out the way most things happen in movies that I do. And I realized the other day when I saw the scene that I did, they did it in Dodsworth, a great movie, Walter Houston and Mary Astor. You ever see Dodsworth?
I have.
Oh, it's great. It's a great scene at the end where he makes up his mind to tell her off, finally, to tell Ruth Chatterton, no, I'm leaving you. It's in the midst of a whole crowd of people passing through, right through, all the way through, right in front of everybody. He doesn't care. He's lost it for once. He's doing the right thing. It's a great scene. In mine, they're in a health food store. They've gotten their food, and he's drifting. And she's saying, we're going to have a great summer. We're going to go to the Hamptons. We'll get a little place, and so-and-so are coming, and so-and-so. We can split the cost with so-and they'll be there. Martin, I'm talking to you. What? You're not paying attention. I heard you. We're going to the Hamptons. We're going to do this and do that. Yes. Finish your soup. Cut. We're walking outside, and she's still continuing with this thing. They turn the corner, and suddenly he stops. He has an anxiety attack or something. He said, Martin, what's the matter? Are you having a heart attack? Should I call 911? I'm in love with another woman. I'm in love with another woman. I'm sorry. You tell Patty you're sorry. Don't tell me. Sorry? You're sorry? I can't help it. We were in Bloomingdale's, and that's the woman was standing next to me, and she's trying a shirt for her Father's Day. She asked me if I was about the same size, and I said, how tall about it? Yeah, so that's how I met her. I'm in love with her. I want to marry her. I'm sorry. You tell Patty you're sorry. And she turns, goes down the corner, crosses over. He's standing in the background. She reaches the pole, and she throws up. Cut. Great scene. She's now unmarried. I wrote that out of, pure instinct. I was sure of the throwing up when I wrote it. It's in the script. And I was sure in the script of the ending where she's carrying this big abstract painting of Alan Bates's by herself in the wind, symbolizing she can do it alone. Doesn't need a man. Anyway.
It's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. And what you've talked about is amazing, that in you for all these years was that scene from Dodsworth, a movie that was made, I think, in the 30s or something.
32.
32, yeah. So that was, that was there all that time. But what else is interesting to me is you're such a funny guy, and you're such a funny writer, and you know so much about comedy, but you just told a story that reminded me of seeing it and made me cry just to remember it. So that's that. So what do you have to say about that for writers?
Well,
if you're writing drama.
You don't be afraid of the emotion that may come. It's a very emotional business, and it's not a sin to cry, to laugh, whatever. And I don't have any profound advice. I operate on instinct. I must say, in a strange way, I'm still trying to make the perfect movie. I've only seen a few movies which I think are perfect. Treasure of the Sierra Madre. I don't think you can do better. I wouldn't change a frame. Who knows what he went through? I don't know. It's a great movie. Third Man, which I love. Love it. Brilliant. It's hard. It's hard to make a great, great movie. So I'm encouraged in my own head right now in the position that I'm in. I'm in dialysis, as you know, 3 times a week, which is tough, but doesn't prevent me from writing. That's the one thing I have to admit it, and I haven't done it yet. I haven't done it. I'm afraid a little bit. I'm avoiding it. There's nothing preventing me from writing the perfect script, or any script, for that matter, about dialysis. I know what I'd like to call it. I did know. I've already forgotten. It's a comic, funny name, something dialysis. It'll come to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you forget these things.
Yeah, I do.
But the place is loaded with stories. So I started thinking about doing. Did you see this movie about 5 incidents in Afghan?
I don't think so.
It's a movie that played at the Guild. It's called 5 Terrible Stories.
No, I didn't.
It's great. Each story is about another child in the family of these Afghan people who are living in a hovel. And he tells the story of each child. It'll rip you to shreds. Well, you could do that in a comic version if you tell the story of the 5 people, if I get to know them better. 5 different people where I do dialysis. Or you go home with one of them, with the guy who works there. They're all different. It's one idea, but I haven't done it. Anyway.
So you don't think of yourself as a comic writer? If you have a comic idea, then you would do it.
Yeah. No, I'm prepared. Mel Brooks and I'm probably going to do a show with Mel and myself, with me, and my guest for the first 6 will be Mel, where we just do what I'm doing with you now. And if it works, it could be fun, and it'll be funny.
I'm
sure.
so.
Yeah. But I'm trying to get the money for it, and I think Jeff Burr can get me the money now. Who knows? Of course, I also made Moon Over Parador,
Yeah.
which you know about, which I shot in Brazil, and I was there for 5 months. So I got to see that fantastic place. Nothing like it on the face of this earth. I've done some crazy and interesting things, I must say. I trekked in Nepal. I went to the Peruvian Amazon, into the jungle. I took ayahuasca with the shamans. It makes acid look like a joke. Nepal, I was in Kathmandu, climbed to 13,000 feet. That's all I could make.
But this is what's interesting to me. You saw you had your friend Miller, whatever her first name was, I've forgotten, and you saw Carolyn Miller, and you saw her, and in seeing her, you began to become involved, and you wanted to learn more, and from that a movie grew out.
Yeah, I mean,
a wonderful movie, and now you're in dialysis. And you go to dialysis twice a week, and
three times a week.
3 times a week, and you look around you at these other people in dialysis, and what happens immediately? There's a movie, and you see a movie. I think this is amazing, Paul. I mean, you're just like...
Well, you got to entertain yourself.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm watching TV there. I'm watching shows where it's garbage on television. Anyway, TV is ruining the minds. And the latest spinning of all this stuff, I don't want to change the subject. The spin masters, with this terrible thing that's happened, enough already.
Yeah.
I think they should be forbidden to go on television and talk about it.
Well, that's the news business, yeah.
Yeah. No, but I mean, look, the question is, what do you do with your life?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a young writer and you want to write, my advice, as I told you, is learn to act, take an acting class, be prepared for rejection, be prepared for anything, but don't be afraid to write, and try to continue to write every day, one way or the other. If you write 2 pages a day, somebody told me this once, maybe it was 3. If you write 2 pages a day, not 10 pages, 2 big typing to make it more, you'll have take Sunday off or 1 day off, and you'll have 12 pages a week, and in 7 weeks you'll have a script. That's not a lot. Try it. Don't be afraid.